All right, friends. Welcome back to Road to the Trials. We are so excited to be here today. I'm Lindsey Hein, joined with my co-host Peter Bromka. This series is supported by V.O2. If you're looking for a great coaching platform, check it out, v.o2.com. Today we're joined by Nick Hauger. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, thanks guys for having me on.
Oh, we're so psyched.
Yeah, congratulations on the 211 in Berlin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's we'll talk about it here in a second, but it is objectively my best marathon ever.
Yeah.
But it's one that's a touch bittersweet. And we'll dive into that. But phenomenal experience, and I am very happy with the result as I've come around over the past couple days. So
Okay. Interesting. I feel like Lindsey and Matt and I set up this like party. We got the drinks, we got the appetizers, and we're like, let's just see who decides to come to our party. Like, we are super psyched on the trials in 2.5 years. And then we're like, we don't really know who's going to. So to see your name pop up, we've never met, but followed your career closely and was super psyched to see your finish. So I'm really interested to hear about, how you were thinking about it, how it played out for you, and then this idea of bittersweetness. I will say the World Athletics tables shine brightly on it. I mean, it seems like among the best performances that from through their eyes, just looking online.
yeah. What's what's crazy is it was a good hour or so until I realized I was 15th. And like if you
Mhm.
look at the initial elite kind of like entries, and then you look at
Mm.
like the few days before that they posted, and I'm like, there's like 30 or 35 guys all under 210, and then I'm like, they just put me in there at the bottom, just USA. I'm like, okay, thanks. And the number of people that I told, like, like, what place will you shoot for? I'm like, gosh, if I have the best day ever, like, I maybe I'm 30th, like it, because if that's everyone ahead of me that's having a good day, and typically Berlin is really good conditions, and it's such a fast course, and people show up there to race really fast. And I was telling all my family, they're like, because a lot of my family doesn't understand what all this is. Like, oh, will you be like top 10? I'm like, in my wildest dreams, you know? And so to come away with a 15th was this really pleasant surprise, and one where it's like, okay, it was a hard day. A lot of people dropped out or fell back, or this, that, or the other thing. So that was fantastic. Bodes well for my like World Athletics ranking and and all of that. So yeah, I don't know. The great thing that I had was last year, my wife raced it after Paris, and I paced her every step of the way except for like the last 1K. I was hurting pretty bad at the end, and so I got to know the course. I felt the experience, and what I will say is, I'll say this year's Berlin was my first world major, because I was just pacer last year, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, Berlin is amazing. It doesn't quite have the crowd noise that I think Boston or New York does, or even London for that matter. But regardless, like, there are so many people out there. The crowd is phenomenal. The course is stunning. When you are really dialed in, you don't focus on what you're running by. There's a lot of history there, which is really cool. But it truly is just it's an amazing course, and it feels like such a relaxed atmosphere for a world major. Like that morning, the
Mm.
weekend, the days leading into it, it's like there's not this big pressure cooker situation. You just feel like you're there for, hey, I'm just joining these guys for a nice Sunday long run. Like, this is really cool. So yeah, it was amazing.
Forgive me. This is our first. You're the first time qualifier we've interviewed. So congratulations. This is
Thank
awesome.
you.
And we don't have our intro down dialed. For those listening, Nick Hauger ran 2:11:48. You were 15th overall and at the Berlin Marathon. Maybe not everyone's, seen our Instagram or followed so closely. So I just want to like
But they
wrap it
should
in.
be following.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, please follow us on
Get
Instagram, because
on
we're going to be
it.
telling more of these stories. What number marathon was this for you?
I think this is only number 4.
Okay,
I
that's what
debuted
I
I debuted in
suspected.
2021 at CIM. Came back the
Yes, I
following
recall.
year, no, 2 years later for CIM again in 23, trials in 24, and then this year. So yeah, it's been a bit.
Okay, yeah, and we're gonna want to hear about those, because I'm definitely curious about your feelings about the marathon and how they've progressed over the years, maybe, if that makes sense. But I mean, yeah, just looking, from on the West Coast of America, I don't have a lot of context for what your aspirations were for this race. I think seeing that you went out in 64:50, I was like, okay. So, I mean, as marathon fans, we always look to the half marathon split just as an indication of maybe what the athlete was looking to do, how they were approaching it. So, yeah, tell me about, you mentioned that you kept the lead up to this race slightly less broadcasted. Like, yeah, how were you thinking about taking on Berlin this year?
Yeah. And I think that goes to my kind of like first thoughts and reactions where it's like, it is a bit bittersweet. Across the finish and the cramps finally take over and I fall straight to my leg.
Those photos. Yeah.
You know,
Go to Nick's Instagram. It's like, oh.
It was horrible. It was a terrible flooring. And you see 2:11:48, and that's the first, like, it's always the first reaction, isn't it? Like when, especially when it's a flat, fast course. And I think, it's bitter in the side that I lived and breathed 209 for the past
Yeah.
several months. I think it starts as an objective because that kind of seems to be the standard where it's like, I think 211, 212 a couple years ago was kind of like, okay, that's where you're starting to be good. And now that has shifted. The marathon itself has shifted drastically. And so you live and breathe that. It's something that I felt I could do for a long time. Going back to my debut, I'm like, I know I can be a guy who runs 209, and then we figure things out of how to get faster from there, right? It feels like it's that first initial step into being great at the marathon, and it wasn't necessarily even just a hope for this at all. I truly trained for this. I took a lot of learnings from my past marathon blocks, the past coaches that I've worked with, other athletes, and kind of what they're doing, and said this is objectively how to run it. I mean, in this day and age, there's the shoe technology, the carbohydrate world that we live in, all of these things. There's every chance possible to run 209 pretty well and pretty easily, I should say. And not that it's an easy thing, but it's inevitably there. And so
you have the resources.
Yeah, you have the resources to do it, and then you build the training, and it goes from like a dream to do it to like, okay, no, I know I'm in the fitness to do this, and I know on the right day, I can do this, and so that's where it's like, I go out at the pace that I wanted to go out at, and I think the initial thought was 65 minutes flat. I think there were a few 5K splits in there that are just a couple seconds quick. That ends up being, the 64:50. So for me, it was that initial a bit of a letdown where it's like, this is objectively what I wanted. This is what I saw in the training. I wasn't being stupid going out what I ran at. Like if I didn't have the confidence to say I'm in 209 fitness, you would have seen me go out a lot slower and work my way through this thing, like I've done time and time again. My only positive split outside of Berlin now was the trials, and that was a really tough day. You have to put yourself in it and see what you can get. So, yeah, I think that's the first initial reaction, and then the second where it's sweet, it's like, okay, I was 15th. I didn't blow up like some people did. Like I passed a lot of people throughout that thing. I think it was you guys that posted like I was somewhere 32nd at halfway.
Wow.
Move up 17 spots by the end. So that's one that's dropouts, and two that's probably I didn't keep track, but probably 8 to 10 people that I passed. And only two guys that, had a better day in my group ahead of me at that 210 mark. So objectively, it's like, okay, I didn't really blow up. I've really blown up before. That was the trials in 24. I was running 6-minute pace at the end,
I looked at your splits. You did not have a official split that was over 6. So
right. I
claim the 558.
Yes. So yeah, it's one of those, like, you take in all aspects. Something that I preach time and time again for my wife, for myself, for the athletes that I coach and everything, we have to keep context in everything, from a training block standpoint to the weeks that you're doing, the month that you've had, and the race in and of itself. We have to keep that context there to hold on to something. And I think over the past couple of days, I've come around to that context being, okay, this is overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and our friend Jeff Cunningham, what time did he say was like the adjusted time based on the heat and humidity?
He was getting into it.
It was in fact sub 210. I feel like he said like 207.
He said this is definitely a 208 performance. And so
Right?
yeah. Oh, that's
So that
what I
has
yeah.
to make you feel good.
and that I think goes back
You
to
know it.
right. And that's I think it's fun. It's definitely fun to have those projections. And I think we do continually over the years kind of have the data to back some of those claims up. I think.
Yeah.
But that's another piece of the bittersweet kind of reaction of this. I've my wife and I, we played that game a ton where it's like,
Mm,
okay, well, the conditions weren't great, and you would have run probably this if it was a day. That's all fine and good, and it gives you a bit of reassurance, but it's not that fun to like,
Still didn't
right.
happen.
Yeah, it's you still didn't do it. It was still a hard day. You got the most out of yourself and had X performance on paper. It's not a necessarily fun game to play. But on the flip side of the coin, because we have to maintain some positivity with this, is that okay, there is more to be seen. And through the experiences I've had with my wife during all of this and these same type of situations, it's like at a certain point that result that we are looking for does happen. And so it's there, and for now you just kind of have to play this game of like, it's like an itch you can't scratch. It's just not quite there yet. And you didn't quite get it right. You don't quite have that mark next to your name, but in good time, it's going to be there. And I think we have to hold on to that belief. Not even just belief, but like a knowing, like that's there, and that's exciting. So,
that's really
um,
exciting.
I think it's fun to say. I think when I see the 208 claim with heat, humidity, and everything, that objectively was the best day possible that I could have. I talked about 209. I said if the stars align and it's the absolute best day, it's absolutely perfect, and you're having a day, I think I could squeak under 209 and be in 208. So it keeps the dream alive. It keeps the belief alive with it, and it validates a lot of the training and the feeling and the things that I believed heading into this weekend.
I just want to bring into this conversation. It's maybe not the elephant in the room, but maybe like Olympian in the room. Is that you're lucky enough to have not just have a spouse who understands like the intricacies of these times, but who is a world-class athlete. So can you introduce, like, when you're talking with your wife about this, what's her context? What was her most recent race?
Yeah, Calli Thackery is Nick's husband or wife. Nick's wife.
Yes, yeah. She is the talented one of the couple. I always joke that like I'm chasing her coattails, like, and I
Hey,
say
it's a good place to be.
yeah, I say often, I'm like, I'm just trying to live up to the bar that we've set, which is fun.
Yeah.
Her most recent race was World Championships, 10,000 meter, where she was 11th on a very, very tough day in Tokyo, stepping down in distance, and the only woman on the start line who was introduced on broadcast in British television saying, yeah, she's got Chicago Marathon in a couple of weeks. So she's absolutely remarkable at what she does, and it's I'm very fortunate to have that around me, and there's a mutual understanding of what we're trying to get at here and what we're trying to get out of ourselves. And yeah, she understands this thing through and through, just like I do. It's you when you live and breathe it, and you're on the cusp of this, and you feel these emotions, and you ride that line for so long together. Like it's a shared experience. And we go back to that with like Paris and Lindsey. You had her on the podcast. Like it's it's a shared experience amongst all of us. So yeah.
I have to just interject here. I don't know if Peter knows this or if the listeners know this, but the story of you guys getting engaged is like the best story ever because she calls Nick up in like basically the middle of the night because she's on the other side of the world and she's like, don't you think we should just get married?
Yeah.
Am I recounting that correctly?
That's spot on. Yep.
You're like, who's this? Wait, what's going on? It's the middle of the night. Yeah.
If you have an hour-long conversation with Calli, you're like, that checks out.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah.
It's so good.
She knows what she wants, and she's no messing around with it. So we just get to it, and we did. It was awesome.
Amazing.
So
2 months
good.
later, we're married. That's crazy.
Because you two
So
met
quick.
where?
We met in Flagstaff. She was on training camp, and obviously I've been here for a number of years at this point. My old teammate at the time and her former teammate at University of New Mexico was Alice Wright, introduced us,
Okay.
and we met on a long run day. I pull up for the long run, and Calli is there, and we had a nice chat on the run, and it was pretty much history. So it's crazy.
This is both wonderful and
good.
awful because I'm like, you go to these big long runs, and you're like, as a married person, you're like, all right, people, like we need to get going. Like we don't need you're not meeting your
socialize
like wife right now. Like we
Right.
need to get, and you're like, well, they might be
Well,
meeting.
maybe we are.
Hey, hold on. Like we might be.
Yeah.
We have
Like if
we
you're
have a
single,
story
maybe
yet.
like wake up a little earlier and like do your hair once or twice.
Yeah,
Here we
I
are.
know.
That's amazing.
It's so good. Well, you are I love that you and Calli share this, and I think that it's just the coolest thing ever, and you're actually pacing her in Chicago in just a couple weeks.
Yes.
How's the recovery going? How are we feeling
Yeah.
about going back out and possibly running like a 2:19 marathon
Right.
in Chicago?
Yeah. It still feels a bit daunting to say we're doing that in a few weeks, but every day that goes by and the legs feel a little bit better, it feels less daunting, which is nice. It was funny. It's like people were like, "Oh my God, you have to bounce back and do that." And Callie's always like, "No, it's gonna be easy for you. You're 10 minutes faster than me. That pace is easy." And I'm like, "It's not about the pace. It's about how these crappy legs come around." But thankfully, I think as you get further along, and it's validation as well with the training, and I think what the day of Berlin presented is that I'm recovering pretty quick. The legs they were pretty sore, going up and down the stairs wasn't great on Monday, but by Tuesday, they're better. By Wednesday, I'm running. Thursday, and today, here we are, Friday, a nice 9-mile run with her, and that felt pretty good. So that's come around quick, and I think I did callous myself very well for this, and I don't think it was my fallback on pace at Berlin. I think it validates that it was more about the conditions than it was about anything about my first half or the fitness ability that I had going into that. So it helps to, again, context is everything, and I think you play that and you understand that, okay, it was more about the conditions than anything.
I'm curious because you're a coach. You alluded to it, but you coach athletes around the world, I imagine.
Yes, yeah. My wife and I, we have an online coaching platform, and I've been doing it for a number of years now. So it's a blast.
You wear many hats. I can imagine, like, if you were coaching yourself, those of us who weren't running Berlin were like, "Ooh, this is going to be a doozy." Like, you checking out, like, I mean, I tried not to text my friends. I had very, like, general guidance for my friends racing Berlin. I didn't have any athletes that I coached racing, but I was like, man, like, about appreciating the moment, staying present, yada, 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 yada. But you're a little bit like, I hope his coach tells him to go out a little bit more conservative. So then,
Yeah.
For you, I'm curious, like, how you square maybe like what you would say to a marathoner versus the position you're in with the opportunity at hand, part of the pro field in Berlin. It sounds like you were like, nothing you've said so far indicates that you were like, well, maybe I'll temper my expectations because it's supposed to be like a sauna out there.
Yeah. I think one thing with all of this is that I do coach myself at this point. Like, ever since leaving NAZ Elite, it's and look, I can't sit there and say like I take like everything I'm doing is completely on my own. Like I have a very good friend in Belgium who was a former teammate of mine at University of Portland. He was on the Olympic team for them last year. And sadly, he can't continue running because he's come down with like a heart condition. But the guy ran 2:08 to qualify for the Olympics at Berlin. And I've picked his brain a lot about how he's gone about his blocks, and it was it was fascinating to me because they're so different compared to maybe an American mindset of this training. And so I really weaved a lot of that into kind of what I've learned and have understood over the years, and the things that I understand about me. And I think, to your point, the one thing I had, like, I think I was going to go out at 64:30. That was the plan. And then I hear that some people are pulling in that same boat, are pulling back to 65 minutes. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. The one thing, we were talking about my wife and the incredible performance at Tokyo. A lot of that was heat prep training. And as I'm with her at altitude camp in St. Moritz, in the lead up to Tokyo and as well Berlin, for me, we were doing a lot of this heat prep. We were heading down to Italy to do sessions in the heat, full sun, it's humid down there. So I did a lot of work in that. We would do easy runs in the afternoon and then jump in a really a really hot bath of 40, 42 degrees Celsius. So not a necessarily fun.
Look at you. European gentleman.
I'm pulling it, guys. And so thankfully, I felt that had carried over. And I think that really helped my mindset heading into it, where it's like, I don't think we have to just overly so. And I know, and everyone also says, okay, well, the fitness still trumps, I think, conditions, of course, as much as possible. The two guys that ran ahead of me in my group that finished 10th and 11th, they clearly were just a bit more fit, because they were like, I didn't do any heat prep. Like they did very, very well. And so that was the other piece as well, where I think as I balance the coach athlete of me, it's like, okay, we are tempering ambitions a bit by going back to 65 minutes. I don't want to be alone in this thing. I'm giving myself the absolute best opportunity to run the time that I want. And if I come off a little bit, then I'm still running 2:10. It's still a big jump. We came off more than that, and it's a 7-second personal best. But yeah, and I just think that helped a lot for the mindset. That's what I told myself at the end when it was really hurting. It's like, okay, you're prepped to handle this. You're prepped to handle this. Like you have to stay positive. And I do think it helped me quite a bit at the end, where it's like it wasn't a true blow up. It was like I just had to come off the pace a bit.
All right, I want to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor for today's episode, V.O2. Unlock your potential with V.O2, the cutting-edge coaching app built on the proven science of legendary exercise physiologist Dr. Jack Daniels. With the built-in paces, coaches and athletes can rely on V.O2 to train more accurately, improve their performance, and significantly reduce injuries. That's been the case for me as an athlete and a coach for years. Team coaches, private coaches, and large organizations have all used this app successfully over the years. It's based on science and is proven out by athletes over and over and over again. And you get the individualized training interdependency within the app. Learn more at v.o2.com today. You can also download the app in the app stores. You can check the links in our show notes. And if you use code ROAD to the trials, all spelled out, you can save 20% as well. So let's get back to our conversation.
Yeah. So when we're talking about this series, Road to the Trials, you're obviously not someone that okay, I really want to make the trials. 2:16 is not a difficult time for you to hit. So I'm curious, how your feelings are on this being a trials qualifier and what going to another trials means to you.
Yeah, it's it's funny. I was messaging a friend of ours it's Jake Smith in England. He follows us pretty closely, and we always see him at races and things. And he was just pumping me up a bit after the race, like, dude, that's an incredible race. And I said, Project 2028 is fully underway. and I just came up with that on the spot there, but it does make you reflect. It's like, I do view this, you have to reverse engineer this. You have to kind of you have to work back from whatever day that's going to be in 2028. It's, who knows where it's going to land, right? January, February, sometime around that time. You want the best day possible there. You want the best day to say, I'm at least trying for this Olympic team, right? We don't get a ton of opportunities. This is every 4 years. The last time it went through, I was kind of just happy to be there last year at the trials. I'd battled so many injuries for so long. So to qualify for the trials was kind of a stretch. I ran that at CIM in 23, and 8 weeks later, then stepped up to the trials. And so, all of these things, that was objectively it was a huge win to make it after those injuries. And now it's this big step up of like, okay, I don't want a career that's just happy to be there. Right. Like there's too much competitive fire in me to say. And I think a lot of people saw the choices I was making in my life, where it's like I'm coaching my wife, I'm balancing a lot. I'm done with a sponsor, like I'm not on his team anymore. It's kind of like, okay, well, gave it a good crack. It's like, well, okay, hold on, I'm not done yet, and
All right.
objectively have these goals, and I want to continue to fully believe. It's like I want to be in the best position possible to attempt to make that team, and objectively make that team, right? It's we only get these opportunities a few times in our life. And I think I truly haven't necessarily had the opportunities necessarily to truly get the most out of myself either. And so I think with a goal like that, projecting out a couple years, um, you stay pretty fired up and pretty motivated and pretty damn determined. And I want to just rewrite the script. I ran into so many injuries, and it's like, well, this guy, he can't handle the intensity. He doesn't really respond to being up at altitude and Flagstaff. And it's like, okay, hold on. I think anyone can. Can you give me the time of day to say, how do we figure you out? How do we figure out your physiology? I have the mind for this. I do. Like when I first stepped up to the marathon, it was a 2:12 debut, and I felt like at the time I outran my fitness. It was a very general like build that we had, and let's just get the feet wet. And time again, the coach at the time was telling me 2:15, 2:16 is a great debut. I'm like, no, I want better than that. And so I know that this is my wheelhouse. I know that I lack in other sides of things, like my 5K, my 10K. It's nothing flashy, and that type of work does help. And but I do struggle at that. I can still get there. You just got to help me figure it out in the process. And I don't think anyone's given me the chance to do so, up until this point. And when we do try, it's not in the way that my body responds to, and then I wind up with injuries and all sorts of things. And so I
Hmm.
think, in a long roundabout answer here, I'm still fired up about this
No,
thing.
it's good.
You have to qualify for the trials to get there, and give yourself that fighting opportunity. You don't just get to say, hey, I'm signed up for it. And so here we are. Like I'm checking a box. Like this is the first step, right? And I very much view these as stepping stones to the day that I think we all are dreaming of, right? I think, even the big guys in this at the moment are still dreaming of that day right now. Like, yeah, of course, Connor Mance is heading to Chicago in a few weeks, going for the American record, but objectively, he's going to still think about what he can do on that day. So then in 28, he's like, this is an American Games. I want a medal, right? It's like we have to kind of collectively think of this in the same manner. I competed with Connor Mance for years in college, right? And I was there and with him for years. It's like
In
there's
conference, right?
of that with me, right? I didn't just kind of get lucky to compete with those guys. I worked my butt off to compete with those guys at university. So that's all still there. That's all still part of me, and it got doused a bit with the injury cycle that I had for a number of
Mm.
years. But it's fully back, and I truly, thoroughly enjoyed this process of getting to Berlin and getting the most out of myself on that day. And that's the thing, is like, what was funny, and maybe this is off track a little bit, is so many guys that I know, like all these Europeans that I've gotten to meet over the past like couple of years, they come up to me afterwards, and I'm laying there like a zombie, and they're like, oh man, did you finish? I'm like, yeah, of course I finished. I'll either have a stroke or a heart attack or a broken leg before I don't finish. Like there's no chance I'm not finishing. So yeah, it was kind of fun with that to kind of play around with.
That's
But
cool.
there's a lot of fire there. I'm working backwards and putting myself in the best position and viewing these 3-4 months at a time as these stepping stones. Like where do I have to go next? to improve? What do I have to do? What do I have to do next year to say I can run 208, 207, that sort of thing. We have to plan for this thing. We have to work backwards from it. And that's how I objectively work when coaching my wife. I had this stencil built out, like what are the pillars to performance to maximize that day for Paris or Chicago. What are these marks that you probably need to be in terms of fitness and ability? And I'm doing the same for myself because I know that works. It gives us something tangible to work off of. And that's the goal.
Wait, what are the pillars of
Yeah.
performance?
Yeah, I kind of break it
Lindsey,
down.
what's the secret?
Yeah. I try to break this down into like, what does it take to run 209? Okay, you have to run 64, 30-ish back to back. What does that probably require in terms of fitness from a half perspective? What do you probably need to be able to do from a 10K perspective? And then let's break that down from, it's aerobic ability, it's callousing, it's where do I kind of lack in that? Like, I believe at this point the marathon probably requires more callousing and biomechanical work than it actually is maybe aerobic, and that maybe that's a bit controversial of an opinion, but I think if you put yourself through a 3 to 4 month block, you're going to be aerobically fit enough to run the marathon. You are. And if you do everything right, you'll just get there.
What do you, when you say callousing, I think a lot of our listeners are marathon geeks. They're going to wonder, like, what does he actually mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, you're like, let's think about the wall at mile 20 that everyone talks about. It's brutal. Like,
We've all been there.
We've all been there. I hit it. Like, it sucks. And what objectively is that? I don't think it's aerobic. My breath was still very steady at the trials,
Totally.
at Berlin. Like, I still have very clear thoughts and I wasn't breathing all that hard, but the legs feel like they're lead. They feel like moving in slow motion. When you do like an all out 400 rep in the last 100 meters, like you're booty locking. That's kind of this thought here. And so I did a lot of work to say, my legs are tired and now we need to push in a hard biomechanical way. You need to have the strength because you can't really mimic the marathon and that feeling as much in training. Like you're going to destroy yourself. I think if you try to get to that, you're not going to have much to give. So you have to kind of get creative, I think, whether that's in a weight room or in these long run sessions where you're pushing at the end under heavy legs, or when you're 120 miles into a week and you've just had a hard session and the next day you're going to go run some hill reps, right? You're mechanically pushing through that. So I think that's one of the biggest key factors for me, at least, is getting through that piece, because that makes or breaks a good performance is what you can do over the last 10K.
Absolutely. Was that some of the stuff that your pilot teammate like sort of influenced you with?
Yeah, definitely. And it was something that I was already kind of thinking on my own terms. But how many guys out there are 59, 60 minute, 61 minute half marathoners, and then they step up to the distance and they kind of, they have all the potential in the world to say, I can probably run 205, 204. Like, it's so much slower than their half marathon pace, but they're two different events fully. Like, the half marathon probably lends itself to a lot more 10K ability, which is something I lack. Objectively, it is. So I think in this block, I had to really pick my battles wisely, where it's like, I still have to touch 10K and half marathon work. Of course, we have to. I'm from the first kilometer of Berlin, I'm in a completely different zone of running than I've ever approached in a marathon. So of course I need to be prepped for that pacing. But it's more about what are you going to be able to do and get out of yourself with 6 miles to go here. And I worked really hard in that facet, and that really carried me through really well. And when it was hurting a lot, I could still get something out of myself. I could still preserve this thing where the conditions were really tough, and it easily could have been I'm running 5:30s to the end of this thing. It was 5 minutes to 5:10. So that's objectively that's a win. That validates the training that I did, and it's something that I'm going to continue to work on.
So I'm curious about this because I love when an athlete, develops a belief in themselves. A lot happens in training that we don't see in racing. I was psyched to see your name pop up with this time in even to hear that it's bittersweet because, I mean, I can say this now. You've run quite well in Berlin. Like when you ran 2:13 at CIM, I was like, okay, Nick has decided to like test out the marathon. Didn't it like whether or not it's marathons are always hard. But I think we have a lot of listeners. I know I coach a lot of people who are like, what would it take for me to fully embody like the next level of runner? Like we all know as coaches, like the BQ times keep coming down, and it's like people want to know, what would I need to do to embody that type of athlete? So you would run like the 2:13, the 2:16, 2:15 at the trials, and you're telling us you're like, I'm a 2:09 guy. Like you don't. The world needs to know this, which we love. But like, talk me through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to my debut. Kind of this thought and mindset. And this is no I kind of alluded to this before. That was getting the feet wet. That was a 16-week block coming off of a little bit of like some injuries here and there, little things that kind of kept me from being as consistent as I wanted to. Kind of a failed track season at the 10K. A natural like, okay, this is kind of my shot to renew my contract at the time. Objectively, like I was kind of in a corner without, it wasn't like, hey, if you don't run well at CIM in your debut, you're probably not getting renewed. It was kind of like the unspoken thing, but objectively, that's kind of where I was. But I knew where my strengths lied, and that was just grinding out good work. And that's essentially what we did. It was just good work. It was all geared around long tempos, a few long run sessions where I pushed at the end, always a day off in there, running maybe 90, 95 miles a week. And Hoka objectively at the time just didn't have the shoe. Like I ran that in the Rocket X1. And so with that, to go and then run 505s the whole way and to negative split and to eat up a lot of bodies at the end and to place third like that was this huge moment of like, cool, I think I've found something I'm pretty good at. and yeah, it was 2:12:59. I just squeaked under. I laid my soul down to get that 100-meter stretch at CIM. But still I walked away from that like, I think, I know these new shoes are coming through. I know I know this game is about stacking these blocks and I start running 10, 15 miles more a week and get more accustomed to this thing and get more adapted to altitude. Maybe it's less days off in the week, that sort of thing. Less cross training because I was doing a lot of that as well. I think I can really smash this thing and really improve. And so it was because of that, it got me dreaming. And I was doing the, similar work, just obviously dialed way back compared to, some of my former teammates, Scott Smith, Scott Fauble, 209 guys at the time. Roy Linkletter at the time was also starting to be on the cusp of where he's at now. And so I think we rewind it back to that time. And then the injuries really set in. It was 2022 onward for the better part of probably a year and a half at least. That I got so super injured. Like I had this like 7-centimeter tear in my quad. Like a week after the New York half. A couple months after my personal best there.
Yeah, that was a good run.
Yeah, that was a great run. I was really happy with that. So 8 weeks off there, whatever, like still hitting the weight room as much as I can, doing what I can. Came back feeling pretty good. Start my next CIM block because it was, that's what we chose. Like, let's delay this thing until CIM. You ran well there last time. It's US champs. Let's get there and try to fight for a win. 6 weeks out, sacral stress fracture. That puts me out for like 8 to 9 weeks. So now we're heading into, I'm starting to run again in beginning of 2023. We start off really light. I get up to maybe 80 miles. I have this awesome track workout with Matt Baxter. The next day I can't walk. It's a grade 4 femoral stress fracture. And I say, what the absolute hell is going on? This is ridiculous. And so that's, I don't know, 6 months out. That's 6.5, 7 months out at this point. You lose so much in that time. You begin to lose faith and trust in your body, and what it can do. And objectively, those thoughts start to come in of like, maybe that's what I had. Like maybe that's what this body's going to give me. Like maybe this is it,
Mm.
right? And when that outwardly starts to kind of come in as well, where it's like, I don't know, man. Like, of course, there were these people like saying, and maybe that was your time. Like, and that was pretty darn good. Like, you gave it a shot, right? And I think like 20 years from now, yeah, you can say like, if you did hang it up at that point, like, yeah, people would objectively understand. That's just not enough for me. It's not enough.
Do you think you were like undernourished, overtrained, panic? That's a lot of injuries, and that has to feel so defeating.
Yeah, I uncovered every possible stone in that. I did food diaries. I did like I tracked my sleep. I, took bone supplements, like all the things, right? And was in the weight room lifting heavy to try to bring up bone density, and it took, thank God my wife knew a lot of people in the UK. I said, look, I'm going to be out for 10 weeks, coach. It was Alan Culpepper at the time. I need to head back. I think there's a chance I can go and uncover some things. I'm going to go figure this thing out. And he said, all right,
Mm.
that sounds good. Just keep me in the loop. You need to probably be away from Flagstaff. And so I went, and fortunately there was this research study happening at a university in the UK, and my wife knew the head researcher and got me in to get a DEXA scan. And they looked at me and they said, "Where do you eat enough?" I'm like, "Look at me. Yeah, I do. I'm not stick
Mm.
thin. Are you lifting weights?
Mm.
Yeah, here's my profile. I'm out lifting everyone on my team. you know, I'm the guy who can do it in the weight room." Um, and they're like, "How much do you run?" I'm like, "I'm keeping it conservative, 85, 95 miles a week." Okay, yeah, well, you have bone density that's on the verge of osteoporosis in your femurs, in your hips, in your low back. And I'm like, all right. And they're like, do you have a history of this? And my sister did. My mom wasn't an athlete, but she's shown that she has low bone density because she's gotten some scans as well. So it's probably some hereditary genetic
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, and so it's like, wow, okay, this answers a lot of things here. I'm so far into this and I'm so out of shape. And I finally, I think, have this Achilles heel that I can now point to. It's not a lack of necessarily trying. And I think I do need to still balance some things in training, but then it was, let's rebuild this. Like we're at ground zero. And so it's a
Mm.
lot of cross training. It's even heavier in the weight room. Um,
Wow.
double my body weight in deadlifts, yeah, for 3 days a week in the weight room, trying to rebuild this thing. And slowly but surely, I've got my bone density back to a place that I can safely go and run. Like I did this block, a lot of 120-mile weeks, a lot of big long runs, a lot of density in there where I'm doing a session, back to back days, and then a long run to follow, like stuff like that. Like finally, I'm here. Like, and in a way, I'm playing catch up because I missed so much time. Like in that time, guys that I was objectively kind of on trajectory with have absolutely they're minutes ahead of me. And on top of that, there's a fire that's been doused because I don't believe that I can do it all of a sudden. And so now it's come back. And that's kind of that story of like, yeah, okay, Nick, you're sitting here like you've run these times and you still say you're a 209 guy. Well, yeah, I missed a lot of time, all right. and
Yeah.
and I'm trying to play a bit of catch up and rebuild this thing back to the abilities that I know I inherently have. Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah, it's been a freaking journey, and that's really validating all of what I just did.
It's really exciting. Like, it's exciting that you went through all that, you figured it out, and now you've got that fire back and you're so excited for it. One of the things you said earlier was you outperformed your fitness in your first marathon.
Mhm.
And I keep going back to that because I think if you've run like lots of marathons, there's probably been a time where this is to the listener, that you've outperformed your fitness, right?
Mm.
I can think of one time specifically where I did it by like 5 minutes and I was like, how did I do that? I don't
Oh.
understand. But I think so much of that, how I did that, was my experience and my mental strength.
Absolutely.
And so I just found it so interesting that you were able to do that on your first marathon, because that's very uncommon that you outperform your fitness in your very first marathon, because there's just so many things you don't know about the marathon. And that tells me you are just a very mentally tough person.
Yeah. I think heading into that, I appreciate it. That's a phenomenal compliment. I really do appreciate it. I don't want to brush that off. And it is something I think we have to pride ourselves on. What I've said time and time again, and I came to this conclusion after my debut. It's like, all right, what is this game? What does the marathon game boil down to? All right, it's a lot of fitness. You got to be pretty damn fit to run the marathon fast. It's all mental. Like, it's 100% mental, this thing. I think and the last bit is there's a little bit of luck involved, I think, as well. Like, you need some good conditions.
Yeah.
You need to not miss a bottle. You need to like, there's a lot of things that have to line up just right. You need to peak at the right time, which is a tricky thing. But yeah, I think, heading into my debut, it felt like I knew I could do something. There was just something in me that said, I can do this better than what coaches and people around me are saying I can do. 2:14 was going to be the best day possible for me. And I continue to say that's just not good enough. And it sounds crazy, but I needed to do something to wire in the positivity of this. And I've only said this a couple times, but if you look back in this old journal that I have somewhere in a box somewhere, there's probably 100 journal entries where I started off and I say, I can run 2:12 in my debut. I will run 2:12 in my debut. I said it over and over again. I wrote that damn thing down. I said it out loud until it was absolutely inherent. It was like there was no other option unless I completely dropped out, broke a leg, got sick beforehand. Like, there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing that. I didn't know what pace we were on for either. I didn't check my watch once. I just knew we were running well. And that's sweet. And so that's a huge validation in and of itself as well, that I think you can believe this thing into doing it. And that may sound crazy. I'm not sitting here writing, I can run 2:02. I'm going to run 2:02. I'm not writing that.
Right.
There are things that are true and potentially not. But I think within that, there's something to be learned where you can truly will yourself into it. And if you have the block that then validates that on top of it, you're setting yourself up for the best day. And the marathon game, it requires you to stay relentlessly positive. I had to kind of think about how I was going to go about this. Like I said, like from kilometer one, from every 5K split, I was in completely new territory for myself. I'm coming through at 15:20 to 15:25 per 5K time and time again, and I'm feeling really good doing it. And I said, you have to snowball this positivity at Berlin. So what does that look like? I'm like, you are coach and athlete here. Pretend your coach is at that 5K mark. Pretend they're giving you your bottle and giving you that feedback and saying, what are they going to say? Like, if you were your coach, like, what would you need to say? Okay, great 5K, Nick. You're right on. You're looking smooth. Like, all of that. That was going on in my head constantly. And I sound like maybe a bit of a nutcase, but you have
No, I love it.
this. And that snowballed into, okay, I stayed relentlessly positive even when this thing got really, really hard. I kind of kept coming back. I'm like, you can do, I will. Like, I always repeat that. 35K in, it's like, this thing hurts. Okay, but your breath is steady. You're having positive thoughts. That means you can still push. Okay, sweet. And I give myself a hard minute push, only to be seen with a calf that wanted to just give out, all these different things. But it just goes back to a lot of belief, positivity.
I'm going to let Peter finish the call because I have
Sorry.
another interview at 2. That's okay.
That's okay.
But before I go, y'all are going to have to fight each other for if I ever run another marathon, for who I choose to coach me. Because I always said I'm gonna choose Peter, but
No,
I don't
no.
know, Nick.
No,
After
yeah.
this, I think I'm going to you.
I'm happy to be the further down on the bench, like
Let's
lobbing
attack
in
it
some
together.
advice, but really,
I think
yeah.
the more minds on a marathon block, the better. So
I mean, I'm like the mental side too. I'm like, I
Yeah.
need that. I need that.
It's great stuff.
You guys enjoy the rest of the
Thank you,
conversation.
Lindsey.
Okay.
Great
Nick,
to see you.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Peter, wrap her up well. I know
Awesome.
you
I know.
will.
I got questions. Yeah, Nick, I'm curious about your approach. Many of us didn't know you were going to run Berlin. Many of us know you as a former member of NAZ Elite, which like quite loudly and famously says we're going to share the process. We're going to like be out there, sharing all these details. So like, what's it been like for you to, chart your own path, pick your own races like that, and then decide I'm going to go in a little under the radar without screaming to the world that this is what I'm shooting for? I think a lot of I also bring it up because I think it's really relevant for a lot of people. We had James McCurdy on recently, and he was talking about the pluses and minuses of say social media, of how people define their circle of both support and also like keeping it positive.
Yeah, definitely. I think I spent so long sharing my journey, which would quickly, as we spoke about, became quite a negative journey. Like, and to say, hey, I've got a race in a few weeks, and then oh shoot, guys, I'm freaking broken again. Like that gets draining, inevitably. And then on top of that, like you lose the sponsor, you lose the team that you had for a couple years. Enough is kind of said about you, like end of last year. It's like, are you still in on this thing? Or like, what the hell is the deal? Enough with this facade of like you have goals, and that like like that was verbatim. Like I was told it was a facade what I was doing.
Wow.
It's like, well, hold on, I don't think you actually know who I am then. And so I think with that, I've pulled back from that. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give you my energy then, because I think you do give a bit of your energy to that when you are talking about what you're doing and sharing that to the people. And I still want to share all of this. I just wanted to go in under the radar a little bit, not talk loudly about this, continue to build that momentum on my own accord, alongside my wife. I mean, she kind of built this schedule for me, which was phenomenal. It was back in May. She goes, I have a feeling you're going to be really fit in September, and I know a pretty good marathon. Berlin would be phenomenal. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, let's do it. And so with that, it was kind of our thing. And
Yeah.
and she's phenomenal at sharing her journey, and she's incredibly authentic with it. She gets so many compliments on it, and in doing that, she kind of shared my journey on top of that. And so, you'd see like a story repost every now and then where she's on the track, like while I'm finishing up a session, or she's always like, my very fit husband, here he is, um, and I thought that was fun because we were just kind of building something up together, and it was something that I felt was mine, and that was important to me. Coming off of the years that I had, and kind of being in a way required to do certain things in a way. It was never necessarily required, but like there was a pressure to kind of continue to show that, like the good, bad, the ugly. So I got to just be me in the process, and I did my training in such a different way that I didn't need any potential. Why would you do like that's not a hard workout? Well, yeah, of course. Like I need to just build a good block because I haven't had a good block in a long, long time, and it worked for me. It did.
Oh, that's so interesting. That idea of like thinking through a workout not only for what it will do for you physiologically, psychologically, but the need to, for some people, the need to like impress others, or how will this workout look to the internet?
Yeah, and I can't say I would sit there and be like, oh, I'd be worried about what people would say. It was mine. I had full
Yeah.
belief in it. But I just didn't feel the need to put it out there. Like it was mine, and I'm happy at this point to talk to anyone who has any questions about it. Like it
Yeah.
was awesome, and I've learned so much about myself in the process, and you probably don't have to hammer yourself into oblivion to be to be really good at a marathon. You have to take calculated risks at the right time. But can we do there's this one, he's from Denmark. He's their top marathoner. He ran Berlin last year in 2:07:54. Came out of nowhere, ran outrageous. And he would always tell me, because he was actually a teammate of my wife's at University of New Mexico for a number of years, and now he's just crushing it. And so I picked his brain a little bit here and there. I'm like, how do you go about this? Like, what's your thought? And he'd always say, train mediocre, run phenomenal. And I'm like, cool.
I love
I'm
it.
here for that, because I've never been someone who puts up flashy workouts, really has necessarily the ability to do that, especially at altitude. It's going to be, it's going to look objectively a bit mediocre. And with the thought process that, okay, no, I'm upright, I'm not injured, like, and
Okay.
this inherently builds something still. So yeah, it's just really fun.
What is the example? I mean, we're pretty much marathon geeks on this podcast. Like, what is an example of a mediocre workout in terms of, the purpose of it? Like, what's it look like, and what are you saying where you're like, well, this is mediocre, but it's serving my purpose?
Yeah, I think for an example, and this was objectively a very hard week of training that I did. It was 122 miles by the time I finished it. But it was a very like dense week, which still gives a lot of quality. And I'm objectively kind of working hard several days out of the week, but none of them were that flashy. So I had a Tuesday workout that was it was 15K, like 9.5 miles or so of tempo work at around, I think I ended up averaging about 5:12 pace. And this is at sea level as well. So we're not even playing with like
Oh,
conversions here. Um,
yeah.
I did that in not super shoes. So that was something else I
Wow.
did. I did that in the Pegasus 41 and then easy double in the afternoon. The next day, I had long hill reps, 10 times 800 meters. Only running about 5:30 pace up those. Long hill, immediately jogging back down, or, kind of being like a nice up tempo effort, like, letting the hill take me down. So quickly you've got 10 miles on your hands of up and down. So I'm pushing uphill on tired legs, back to biomechanical work. I'm callousing my quads for the distance in a different way. The day after, a, an okay on paper tempo, and then the next day I had a 20-mile long run. Um, again, just kind of running easy, but working down.
Those are 3 days.
Right, 3 days. And I only did that kind of week once. Then we get up to altitude in St. Moritz. I do 10 times 300 with my wife on the Saturday on the track, just to spin the legs a bit. And then the um, last 9 miles of my 20-mile long run on Sunday, I did some like in-out miles. So one hard at about 5:10, and then one floating at about 5:50 to 6-minute pace. Again, when
Gotcha.
you look at a pace perspective, it was nothing flashy at all. Um, I'm not objectively running the pace that I'm going to be trying to run, right? But
Yeah.
still a belief that that's still a lot of really good work. I've never hit that many 120-mile weeks. I'd hit 2 in my life before this, and then I stretched out 8 of those, and had a few of those weeks where it's like, "Man, I did a lot of, like, good work."
Yeah.
And you come out of that, and you finally start to taper, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I've got a lot to give here because you're finally
Yeah.
fresh. And so it was a lot of stuff like that. Um, and a lot of that was prep for some of those big marathon sessions where I gave myself the space. I didn't have the density. And then I'm like, you know, 3 times 5 mile at, 4:55 down to 4:53. That's a good session.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
that's 2 weeks out, so
Gotcha.
I'm finally getting to that point. I had to do so much of that mediocre work beforehand so that I could arrive at that space, rather than saying, okay, I need at least 10 of these sessions throughout the block to then validate running 4:55s. I only did that a handful of times, and it preserved my ability to run a lot of miles, to have a bit of that catch up for what I've missed in the past, and to have a healthy block, because then I'm not killing myself and hoping that the body stays in one piece. I don't have a
Mhm.
sponsor anymore. I don't have physio, like any of that stuff. I'm working on myself. Foam roller is my friend. Like all of these things. Like, uh, and so I have to inherently think critically about the kind of work and when and where I'm putting it. So no,
Gotcha.
it was really fun.
That's what, because that was going to be my question. Is like, I think a lot of athletes struggle with, where in this block am I going to find a moment to give myself the confidence that I can run marathon pace. And, for you, that's 4:55s. So I was listening for, when does that pop up? I have my cousin who's a runner, but he's not a big marathoner, was saying, I was talking to him about it, like the athlete desire to see it a lot, like check in. And he's like, it's like my little daughter. She's 9 years old. He's like, when we're baking a cake, I'm like, looking ain't cooking, hun. Like, you can't open the oven over and over,
Exactly.
just to see if it's cooking. And I think that's how a lot of marathoners can feel. They're like, they want to see that. So it's super inspiring to hear about, the ways that you trusted yourself. I'm curious, Flagstaff sounds, I still have yet to go there. If you're a marathon nerd like me and all of us, we see YouTube videos, we listen to the podcast, we see all the imagery on Instagram. I'm curious about like the pluses and minuses of being there, because I can imagine so many pluses, and also it feels like it could be a comparison trap, like almost by definition.
Yeah.
You've dropped a lot of names who train in flag, and I'm like, okay, it sounds like Nick has to get the best parts out of that relationship and also not, get trapped by comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I knew a long time ago I can't operate like some of my former teammates or other athletes that are here.
Mm,
I just can't, and that's okay. And maybe at a certain point I can operate closer to that ability. But there's a lot of people here that were born and raised at altitude, have been at altitude in so much of their life, and it just feels natural for them. They adapt really well, and I'm not saying I don't adapt. I do. It takes a little bit of time, but I really have to put a lid on what is actually possible from some of these workouts while I'm here. I have to, and I'm still figuring this piece out, because this block wasn't in Flagstaff for Berlin. It was
oh,
up in St.
yeah,
Moritz. Which is lower.
yeah,
And plenty of time at sea level. So it is an ever going, I think, experiment. Ryan Hall says that all the time.
yeah.
We're really close with Sarah and Ryan, and
Great.
keep redefining your experiment. And that's objectively what it is. Like, you have to just kind of figure this thing out. Um, Flagstaff is really hard, and I felt that from day one, and I still feel that 6 years later being here.
Wild.
It's There's a stark contrast. Like, I trained in Boulder at one point, for a little stint before my final year of college. I've been in St. Moritz, and that feels inherently way easier than Flagstaff. It's higher, it's more difficult, it's hilly, it's demanding. Like, there's so much of it, and it gets exponential up here. Um, in a way, I have kind of this love-hate relationship with it, where it's like, I love what it can do for you when you head down to those races, and I hate how you feel a lot of the time. You're absolutely destroyed some days. But I think if you get it right, there's an absolute magic to it. And I'm still searching for how exactly that's going to look for me going forward when we are here. My wife and I, we spend our time between here in the UK and St. Moritz and abroad and that sort of thing. Um, and for the next, better part of 6 months, we're here back in Flagstaff. And so I view it as a really good opportunity to elevate, because you can, like, aerobically you do, um, but still holding on to the things that make me tick. And
Yeah.
probably a lot of that moderate effort work is going to bode really well for me. It keeps me healthy. It keeps me continuing to progress. And I can get through a really good week by doing
Hmm.
so. And so I think I got to see a lot of that on, when I was in Europe for the past couple of months. And now I get to kind of implement that all over again in a new setup and new environments in a way. So yeah, but at the same time, like you say, kind of like the comparison game, it's everything's out there, right? You know what everyone's
Yeah.
doing. People are doing crazy sessions out on Lake Mary, and you
Yeah.
know,
Nuts.
Adrian Wiltskir, my old teammate, Wesley Kipps,
Yeah.
Alex Masai, monsters up here. 450 to 455, on Lake Mary
Just
for 30K. Like, that's That's crazy. Nico Young under 450s for Buffalo Park tempos, where I would be happy to run 5:10 pace at what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's there are people that are just they're on a different planet of workout ability up here, and that's fine. Like I am
Okay.
completely okay with exactly where I'm at and exactly how I have to go about this because it's mine. And I just if we get caught up in that comparison game, you're gonna live a career of like, shoot, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, maybe, and I spent too much time worried about what other people were doing, not what I was doing, and I don't want to go home and have that.
Did you feel that? Were you able to own your own journey before the like 2 years of injury, or like how is that different,
More
or
or
how did
less,
that affect you? Okay.
my build
Okay.
to CIM, my debut, um, a lot of that, even though I was on the team, was alone, until Rory didn't have his Boston, that he wanted
Yeah.
to have. Like he was doing Boston, and then he signed up for CIM as a second chance to get what he wanted out of the block. So up
Yeah.
until that point, it was Nick running CIM. Um, this is Nick's schedule, right? And
Okay.
a lot of that was long solo tempos out on Lake Marriott at 5:15 to 5:20 pace. And that
Yeah.
kept me
Oh,
just enough dialed in to stay healthy throughout the block and get the strength that I needed for my debut. So
I
I
love
get to
that.
own that. But yeah, it's still someone else's. It's still an algorithm that worked for Scott Fauble, for Scott Smith, for these guys. Um, and it was an algorithm that I think still left out the pieces of me that make me tick on top of that.
Mm,
Um, and it was, and that's not to say like it didn't work. Like objectively it did, and I'm very grateful for what I learned through that first block, and the fact that I got through that first block and got to run that 212. That is, I'm incredibly thankful for that moment. And then you reflect back on it, it's like, okay, cool, like I can do more, I can do different things, I don't have to
mm,
take that day
mhm.
now going forward. But maybe those long tempos are just the same, like going forward, because I know that they do build something aerobically and physically for me going forward.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I'm happy that you have those different voices like Ryan Hall and perspective, because I do think as pros, I don't always envy you all how there's a lot of sunshine, like if you try something and it doesn't quite work out, most of us amateurs get to run this marathon, run that marathon, see, try on different types of training. And so, in a good way, bad way, like the attention's on you. I'm curious, like, so we have, an important pacing job in
Yeah.
less than 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then I mean you reference these microcycles, these 3 to 4 month, you know, chapters. How are you thinking about, certainly like the trials in 2028 is not, it's our obsession on this podcast, but it's not like the only thing in the world. Like how will you begin to think about the coming years?
Yeah, I think I I do need that time, right? I think of course, like to put your name in the hat, um you have to be someone who's gone and run 208, 207, whatever that is. Um, because you object, like we go back to pillars of performance. What do I need to have done, or in terms of fitness, by the trials to say I can go and compete, because it is a validated thing. I don't want to go in as a 211 guy in 2028 and then probably try to run 63-minute first half. Like objectively, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So you need some of those things. So I need something flat and fast again. Um, if you know, all being well, if my legs and my mind and everything come around really well, marathon project is just down the road, and that's a really good opportunity to then kind of come back to this 209 project in a way. Um,
Yeah.
but it's not. I have to just see. I have to be really
Yeah. Yeah.
critical and careful. And then on top of that, you need some of those championship style races. Like you need that kind of world marathon energy again, and to get the most out of yourself, I think. And what does it take to go and just simply race? Boston is an incredible race. New York is an incredible race. They're hard, and And if you are shooting for top 10, like you objectively are running incredibly well over this distance and at the highest of the stages. So
Yeah.
you need those moments as well. So where and when those land, not totally sure. I think Boston would be really fun in the spring, but at the same time, I just don't know yet.
Okay.
Those are kind of like pillars of the stepping stones that I need at some point.
Yeah.
We'll kind of craft it as we go.
This is excellent. Yeah, I mean, we're excited to follow your journey, have you back on as you have other performances, and we really appreciate you sort of reflecting on all sides of that. Certainly, like the performance of 15th at Berlin, hopefully it just like sits in race directors' inboxes, like, all right, yeah, this guy,
Yeah, I know.
got a spot for him on the starting line.
I know. It is one of those. I'm like, okay, that does help a lot. And so,
Yeah,
because
good.
it's hard to get into these days. You
Yeah,
either need that time or you need something that says, okay, like you can compete. So I think I showed that I can compete.
absolutely.
And
Send him our way. We'll vouch for you.
yeah, no. The great thing was MK, the Boston elite coordinator.
Okay.
She was
Yeah.
at Berlin, and that video of me at the end, just on all fours, was actually from her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she saw me afterwards. She goes, "I have a video to show you." I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." So she sent it to me and me and my wife. But
She's wonderful.
super, super applauding of the effort. She goes, "That was such a good run. You should be really proud of that." And so that that helps. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
These marathon majors, they're part of it is a big relationship play, and I've been at New York half for a number of years as well, and so I know that feature is there at some point. So yeah, it's just putting up performances, showing that I'm still in this thing, showing that I can still do something, and continue to just be a good person in the process, which isn't a hard thing to do, right?
No, that's awesome.
But yeah,
Yeah,
no, I can't wait.
it's fun to see the cast of just the names of people you've referenced on this podcast. Like, it's a good crew of people. It's like good influence, people who are experienced, people who believe in you, and can give you that objective. Like, that was a good performance. Like, we can work with this.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
No, it's fun. It's something to build off.
Awesome.
I'm hungry for the future. It's
Yeah.
it's a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this. I mean, again, the people who listen to this both love the sport, they love to be a fan, and they also, are always tinkering around. So I think for their own running, and I think some of the ways you described, those weeks and inputs from teammates and like trying new things is really inspiring. So thank you for talking to this audience, and we'll definitely have you back on. It's going to be a fun journey, and maybe we'll see you at some of these races. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I know. I just appreciate the platform. It's not often you get to kind of reflect and talk about it. And of course, there's always the opportunity to kind of put it out there in the world. But I am passionate about this thing. I love it, and I love getting the most out of myself, but the most out of athletes as well. Like I absolutely love the coaching side of it, and the thing I try to say to everyone, I'm trying to say it to myself as well, is like, I truly believe everyone has potential in this thing. Because if there's all types of different training methodologies, and the ability to fit the puzzle just right for me, for you, for anyone, we can objectively get the absolute most out of ourselves. And so, and I think within that, that's endless potential and endless opportunity to step up to the plate and to learn a bit about yourself and get the most out of yourself, and have a bloody good time doing it. Right?
Well, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, there's not only one way to do it, and that's a great message. I think you touched on it, but like, if you don't just have to, try a way that training's worked for someone else, and then if it injures you, keep going. Lindsey is I don't know how well you know her. She's a fierce competitor. Currently her Achilles heel is her Achilles heel, so she's like a little dinged up, but she's always joked that I could coach her, but I've always joked that I would need to use some reverse psychology, because she'd be like, I'll show Peter, like, I'll just like
Yeah, you have to. It's more psychological than it is physiological, I think, when it comes to the coaching side. And I think giving that validation to the athlete that they can and will is quite important. Yeah, well, I could talk endlessly about that stuff.
Yeah, we'll have you on another, like, sort of put you on the coach's couch at one of these ones, and it'll be fun to dig into all that. Thanks.
That's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks so much for being here, man.
yeah,
We really
you guys.
appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Okay.